Hello listeners, viewers across the planet. Welcome back to Legacy Pulse with Pepe Onjema. Legacy Pulse is powered by Kuchu Times Media Group. Today we conclude the segment on strategic litigation. This is the final segment of this conversation. I invite you in to join us as I carry this conversation forward. Court wins versus movement wins. Winning in court is not the same as winning in real life. I have been a plaintiff in several strategic litigation cases for the queer community in Uganda. Litigation can set precedent, yes, but it does not automatically change hearts, systems, or safety. A legal win can trigger backlash, as we've seen, trigger surveillance, and even political grandstanding. And we can go back to the Homosexuality Act of 2014. We won on a technicality, but did that stop Parliament from passing another law? Did it stop community from persecuting LGBTIQ persons or people who are suspected to be LGBTQ in their communities? The answer is no. Did it yield registration of organizations as LGBT organizations? No. What can we flash back to say that particular win in 2014 created some positivity? I would say to some extent, very, very little, probably micro percentage of people opened up to the conversation, accepted, not really accepted, but tolerance. And I don't like to use that word, but maybe some people started to tolerate the LGBTQ community. A judgment is a tool that is necessary, of course, but without community power, it just stays on paper. It's just something that the courts put on paper. There's a risk of over-relying on courts. What happens when movements put all hope in courts? I'm not saying that that's what we've done, but we have been pushed to rely, and maybe on our part as activists as well, what we've done is indeed rely on the courts. Yes, we continue to do the work at the grassroots level with the hope that the courts will rule in our favor and that ruling can help us as a tool to change hearts and minds. But courts are slow, they're expensive, and often disconnected from lived realities. We've seen that in the Ugandan courts. Magistrates carry their religious biases into courtrooms, into spaces where rule of law is supposed to be the key. Strategic litigation can centralize power in lawyers and funders, and often grassroots voices get sidelined. And even some lawyers who side with grassroots communities get sidelined as well, because strategic litigation has been, particularly in Uganda, has been also NGOized, where funders are looking to put funding in NGOs that they themselves believe can drive the agenda of strategic litigation, often leaving grassroots organizations and leaders with less power, as the NGOs that carry the strategic litigation tend to receive all or majority of the funding, whereas community organizations doing advocacy, doing capacity development and awareness get the crumbs at the bottom that cannot actually, cause the impact that the community desires. Movements cannot outsource liberation to legal systems that were never built for them. And I want to say that again. Movements cannot outsource liberation to legal systems that were never built for them. We cannot outsource our freedom, our liberation to systems that were not built for us. Let me talk a bit about backlash. Backlash is not part of the equation. Every legal win has a shadow side. In our country, LGBTQ strategic litigation, in fact, has provoked harsher laws, public hostility, and targeted attacks. We've seen anti-gay groups weaponize our governments, our laws into further opposition of LGBTQ persons in Uganda. And we are seeing this being replicated in other countries as Uganda remains ground zero for testing of these horrible, hostile laws. Our own legislators weaponize court to rally opposition against LGBTQ persons. If we do not plan for backlash, we are not doing strategy. I've been in rooms where, yes, we plan, but when we are planning, you find that the plan of dealing with backlash is left to the community, to cater for itself. We rarely financially plan for the backlash. And when we don't plan for backlash, then it's not fully strategic litigation. We're just doing wishful thinking. So what actually moves change? If courts don't deliver full wins, what does? We are fighting for our freedom. We are fighting for our liberation. And we are reflecting on one of the strategies that we've used, which is strategic litigation. So if courts are not delivering full wins, what does? Where do we get the full wins? One of the things that we need to sustain and continue to build on is sustained community organizing. Let's not let money, allies, or so-called allies divide us as a community. We must build power. We must sustain our power as the community. We mustn't be taking directions from allies, but allies taking directions from us. When the Convening for Equality was formed, in one of the episodes I talked about the resistance for CFE, because the community had built some level of power and said, this time we are leading the coalition. We are not powerless. And I think that was a powerful thing. And we need to sustain that power. So sustained community organizing is very, very key. It's very fundamental. We need to do our cultural work, the culture of our organizing. Are we holding each other accountable? Are we being accountable? Are we holding each other collectively to know that, collectively our mental health is good enough for us to carry this work? We need to tell our stories ourselves and have others share it. Storytelling is very key in shifting public narratives, but we also have to be careful who we are telling that story to. I've seen some podcasts pop up led by young Christian identifying people where they are hosting young gay men who have gone through conversion therapy, and they're parading that as defending and emphasizing the narrative that people are not born gay, but people become gay through abuse. And I'm not trying to say that people don't get abused. People do. My point here is where these young people are seeking for help, those spaces are reiterating the narrative that the LGBT community are perpetrators of violence. And in the process, these young people are actually going through violence, which has been disguised as help to them. That's a conversation for another day. But for us to shift public narratives, public perceptions, we must tell our stories and find people who genuinely care for our voices, our lives, to amplify those stories. And this is one of the things that Kuchu Times Media Group is doing, platforming space for queer people to be able to share their narrative, and also for us to archive and keep those stories and narratives so that the people who come after us are able to tap into that to see where they are and where they can go and how to contribute to that. Litigation works best if it follows, not leads. Okay? I believe that litigation should follow community power or movement power, but it should never lead. Yes, I have been and I am part of a lot of strategic litigation cases. That is not short of concern, conflict with the culture of strategic litigation that we have in Uganda. But I stick there because you must all know my name. You must know my contribution, with the hope that it inspires you, with hope that you can learn. But I also stick there because in most cases, the places that I take or occupy are places where people don't want me. And I'm there to resist those spaces, to say that I will be here. I know the courts would rather I'm not anywhere challenging anything. I know that some allies feel the same. But I will keep occupying spaces. Not all concern. Sometimes you can be so concerned and so conflicted about something and you decide to step away, and your stepping away can leave a gap and can negatively impact a community or a narrative. Real change happens when people are moved, not judges. Yes, judges are people, but history has taught us that the right judgments like they're not human. So we, the actual people, we the people, must be moved. We must move to change, to make the change. We must move our attitudes to create positive impact. And we must not give up. And in doing so, can we think of how to make strategic litigation actually work for us? Yes, the world right now is in all sorts of chaos. And that chaos is also moved to the courts of law. But law, the spaces are not moving to positively impact people's lives. In Uganda's case, the courts are actually being used to reinforce and make tighter and worse the laws to gag and stop. In fact, it's like they are using them to extinct the LGBTQ citizenry in Uganda. And recently we are seeing in Senegal. In our reflection, can we reimagine strategic litigation? In fact, maybe the question isn't should we litigate? It should be how do we litigate differently? Litigation should be one tool among many. It must be community-led, trauma-informed, and tied to protection strategies for this particular most at-risk community. When we're doing strategic litigation, and I mentioned earlier that, if community is not at the center, then like the question of who are we litigating for? It is for the community. It is for the safety of the community. But where it leaves the community feeling unsafe, more than feeling safe, then we need to go back to the drawing board and check ourselves. We need to look around the room and ask the question, is this community-led? And sometimes community-led doesn't mean that the lead lawyer or the lead attorney has to be a queer person. No, it's about the power. Has the community, is the room filled with community power and community alignment? Is it trauma-informed? And is it truly seeking for protection? Who pays the price? Who holds the power? Those are questions that need to be alive when we gather to strategize. That is the strategy. And we need to also further have, I want to even put this on a t-shirt. When we do strategic litigation, our motto should be protecting people, not just precedent. A legal victory should never cost people their safety. It should never cost people their dignity. Individuals at the center of cases carry enormous risk. The risk of losing a lot. You come as a plaintiff, you're a plaintiff in a case. Probably every time you go to court, you're going on a boda, sometimes a hired car, but either you're unable to pay for the car or the taxi. And the media is awash in courts with your pictures, with your voice and everything. And you're unable to go back to where you stay or where you left in the morning to come to court. Those risks are usually enormous. The mental toll and emotional toll it takes on plaintiffs is also enormous. But these are things that we don't speak about when we are planning, when we are strategizing for litigation. The social, economic, physical, mental, and emotional risk must be addressed with long-term support, not just one-off supports that has been in most of the experience. And I want to conclude by saying that strategic litigation is necessary. This critique should not leave you feeling that we should do our strategic litigation. No. I think what we've been doing is litigation, but not strategic litigation. Maybe to some extent it's been strategic, but it needs to be holistically strategic. Therefore, if strategic litigation is truly strategic, it must protect the people behind the case or the cases, not just the principle. So I hope that the conversation that I've been carrying on this Legacy Pulse has educated you a bit, because this is not the entire conversation. These are just some reflections that I've had, having worked and still working in the movement for over 3 decades. I've mentioned things around real life, how real life is not really decided in court, how winning in court is usually not the same as winning in real life. And for me, freedom encompasses all these things. But the real life that I live is outside of those courtrooms. It's me being able to go to the grocery store or at Mama Nachi's or Mama Mboga's and buying my vegetables, and no one is trying to pull me around or refusing to sell me the groceries that I've come to buy. The real freedom is me being at peace with who I am. So, dear listeners, as you reflect on my words today, I hope you found it meaningful. I hope you've picked some things that you can work with, and feel free to reach out through our socials and let us know. Let us know how you're doing, how you're feeling after this conversation, and how we can improve the podcast to continue building our legacy. Thank you. And keep expanding your knowledge. Do not disconnect from the movement, because you are vital in contributing and reclaiming our narrative, our freedom, and I hope that you can be more hungry. I hope this actually has triggered a hunger for freedom in you. Thank you so much. Until next time, this segment on strategic litigation comes to an end. Asante sana, Awadfambu. Till next time. This has been the Legacy Pulse with Pepe Onjima, and it's been powered by Kuchu Times Media Group.